What did you think was going to happen? That I would take on the First Order with nothing but a laser sword?
Yes, that's exactly what I thought was going to happen.
That actually does sound pretty awesome. Okay, let's do it.
Okay, that was funny, but actually that plot point makes a lot of sense, and I'm going to tell you why right now. Welcome to this special movie analysis. My name is Greg, and today I'm going to be looking at Last Jedi. So channels such as How It Should Have Ended and Cinemasins like to point out different plot holes or plot inconsistencies, but in The Last Jedi, there are 4 different ones that actually do make sense, and that these criticisms are wrong, and I'm going to go through that right now. The first thing I want to go over is in Snoke's throne room when Kylo Ren brings Rey in there. So the question is, was killing off Snoke the right plot point? Now, if you take How It Should Have Ended or Cinemasins, they would probably say no, that doesn't make sense, especially since we don't know anything about him. So everybody is in this Grand Emperor-like throne room of Snoke, who's looking as vicious as ever. And you can actually see the fear in Rey's face because, well, she knows she's done. And then Snoke coldly orders Kylo to kill Rey. And I don't think Kylo actually made his decision until right around this point.
My worthy apprentice, son of darkness, heir apparent to Lord Vader. Where there was conflict, I now sense resolve. Where there was weakness, strength. Complete your training and fulfill your destiny.
And it's in this very instant where sad Kylo Ren finally realizes he's more powerful with Rey than going up against her. So what does he do? He naturally, with the Force, decides to team up with Rey and kill his biggest competition. That makes a lot of sense. We know the Sith turn on each other, and any big Star Wars fan should already know that. And this is an amazing, genuinely creative twist that fits within the story. I'd do it, and anybody else who was in Kylo's shoes would do the same thing. And who was Snoke? Who cares? His backstory was not important to the overall plot. This shows off Rian Johnson's storytelling brilliance, where he says to the audience, you think you know what you want, but guess what? That's not actually what you want. And it's pretty amazing how true he was. Do we really want to see another villain like Snoke monologuing, explaining their entire backstory and with useless exposition that we're not even going to care about once he's dead? And let me tell you, Rian Johnson did the right thing, because now Kylo Ren goes from the second-rate villain to the main villain, which is exactly what everybody wanted. And quite honestly, Snoke's backstory would have been nothing but fan service. And what's also great about this scene is that it harkens back to The Last Jedi, one of the best scenes in the entire franchise, where Luke is confronting the Emperor, and then guess what? Vader kills off the Emperor, and just like in this scene, Kylo kills off Snoke. I don't understand why one was bad and the other one was good. We didn't know anything about the Emperor in the original trilogy, but nobody seemed to care about that. So this was a great piece of storytelling with a tiny little twist, a little wrinkle in there to make it different. Plot point number 2.
Mutiny! Full-blown mutiny! All because Holdo didn't share her plan, and Poe thinks he's resistant to Jesus, and they're all wrong.
But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it wouldn't have made sense to tell Poe what was going on. This guy, this disobedient hothead, got most of the freaking fleet killed off. And he did that by disobeying orders directly from Leia. So why in the world would you ever trust this guy to follow a plan if he knows it? Do you think even if he knew the plan, he would still follow it and not mutiny against the person in charge? I kind of doubt it. And then we find out he did have a plan, Poe just didn't listen, and he needed to be blasted to be brought back to reason. Not only was it clear that Poe was wrong, but it also kind of subverted some expectations. I mean, you go into that thinking, oh, well, Poe is clearly right, he is going to lead a mutiny, and everything is going to turn out well, and then it turned out that he was the one that was wrong. That is creative storytelling, everybody. I mean, what's more interesting? Poe doing what he did and everything turns out hunky-dory and Poe doesn't learn a lesson? Or the fact that Poe is wrong and he needs to evolve as a character and confront his faults? One's more interesting than the other, everybody, and it sure as heck isn't the one that ends up hunky-dory. Point number 3.
So we don't get spotted by some redneck alien.
Oh, good idea.
This is a covert mission. We don't have time to waste rescuing horses or feeling bad for random kids.
Right.
No matter how sad it makes us.
Right.
Our friends are literally running for their lives. It's all up to us.
All right, I know. I said I get it. Jeez. We're landing in the grass.
Okay, Canto Bight, this is what makes Star Wars great. Lots of aliens, a completely different world, and just completely immersing ourselves into this space fantasy soap opera. Not only did Canto Bight expand the universe, it was also fun. It was just a fun scene to be a part of. The point was to see Finn and Rose interact and develop their chemistry, and sure, they failed, but guess what? Not everybody succeeds. Sometimes you put together a plan and it ends up failing. I've done it. You've done it. I don't see why it has to be different in the movies. I mean, this is war we're talking about. Things go wrong in war all the time. And you know what? It kind of did move the plot. We were introduced to a different character, and they did make it onto the ship, and they were this close. And when you have storytelling like this, where you know things can go wrong, and you know that maybe the heroes don't always succeed, that builds tension, not only for this movie, but for future movies. And for me, I like feeling that tension. I like thinking to myself, questioning whether or not the heroes are going to succeed, and that is what makes that whole scene and whole part of it awesome. Number 4.
What did you think was going to happen? That I would take on the First Order with nothing but a laser sword?
Yes, that's exactly what I thought was going to happen.
That actually does sound pretty awesome. Okay, let's do it.
Fire on those two. Do it.
So was Luke's death necessary, and was that fight scene appropriate for the character? And guess what, everybody? It's a yes all the way around. Well, when we first see him on this little island, we think we're going to get the Luke Skywalker. A Vader-killing, hope-filled, wise Jedi Master who brought peace to the galaxy and balanced the Force. This is the hero of all heroes, and yet he casually throws his lightsaber over his shoulder? At first that crushed me, and it probably crushed you too. But guess what? That was the point of it. Because guess what? Luke failed. He didn't bring peace to the galaxy, and he clearly didn't bring balance to the Force. Mostly because the Force already is balanced. And the more that Luke learned about the Jedi, the more jaded he became. And that makes sense. When you meet your heroes, sometimes they aren't as good as you expect them to be, and you become jaded with the world. The Jedi were really the Jed don't, as in don't do what we did. And their arrogance and their so-called heroics led to the collapse of the Republic. And just like his heroes, his arrogance and so-called heroics led to the birth of Kylo Ren. And at that point, Luke Skywalker is more like Luke Landcrawler. So what does all this have to do with that final fight scene? Well, when he meets Rey, he finally learns that there is an opportunity for him to redeem himself, to finally be what the Jedi never were. And so he goes to help everybody there. Now, granted, no, he doesn't do like what this is. But that's not the point. The point isn't for him to like grab a big lightsaber and go beat everybody up. The point is to show his wisdom and what he has learned. That sometimes violence doesn't always get what you want, and sometimes it can be self-destructive. And we see this within the very first Star Wars between Obi-Wan and Vader, and we see it again with Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker. I mean, Luke thought to himself, I can save the Resistance, and I can preserve my legacy, and I can be redeemed. And so we get this character who's so jaded and isolated and feels so distraught about everything, and then we get a character who's back to being hopeful again. That is what we call a character arc. And if you look from the very beginning to the very end of Luke Skywalker, it's one of the best arcs in cinema history. And this again is the brilliance of Rian Johnson, because he harkens back to the originals while creating something interesting and adding little wrinkles to it here and there as we go along. And that is why this is so awesome. And that's why I would say that, yeah, Luke needed to die in this one, and he needed to go the way he did because it really shows that he's learned something. And you can think of the original trilogy as the elementary school level of learning about the Force, and The Last Jedi as the college course about the Force. And at the beginning of the movie, just like Luke became jaded with his heroes, we become jaded with Luke, which is the point. He failed, and then he had to overcome that failure, and that is interesting. Way more interesting than a guy who's perfectly powerful in every single way. And so those are the 4 plot points that people point out as being inconsistent or don't make sense, and they actually do make a lot of sense, especially if you think about it. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it doesn't make sense. Alright everybody, thank you for watching. Now I want to hear from you. Is there something in The Last Jedi that you think it's a bad rap? Leave a comment below. And if you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more videos. Peace, Internet.